Hi everyone. You know, AI digital natives and startups are innovating at record speed. Today we're joined by Ana-Maria Constantin, CEO of Cascade AI, to talk about building with Microsoft. We're going to talk through markets and marketplace and how to scale through co-sell. Anna, let's start with, what problem did you set out to solve for your customers?
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. So at Cascade, we're an agentic AI company for employee support and enterprise process automation with flagship use cases in HR and IT. This means that we're set to transform the way employees engage with HR, with benefits, with company resources, as well as the way HR and benefits teams operate in the background. We're built on Azure, and actually before starting Cascade, I was a software engineer in the Azure core, Azure Compute team, specifically the one fleet efficiency team. So for me, being here is very special today and having this conversation because Microsoft was a foundational part of both my personal professional journey as well as our journey at Cascade as an AI native solution that's built on Azure. During the time I spent in the Azure core team building AI systems for driving efficiency for Azure as a cloud provider, I saw that the next wave of enterprise AI is going to come from executing work across systems, from going beyond just driving individual productivity. And so at Cascade, we focused very intentionally in HR because I wanted to bring AI to every organization out there, but also do it in a way that's employee-centric. And today, you know, there's a lot of negative conversations about AI in the media, about job displacement, about disruption. It's framed potentially with negative implications. And I'm passionate about scaling AI that creates opportunity for everyone. And in an enterprise context, HR is where the stakes are the highest for every single employee. You deal with someone's payroll, you deal with their family coverage, with their going on leave after experiencing a miscarriage. These are highly personal moments that create actually a lot of crisis loads on HR teams in the background. And so with the AI agents that we're deploying for organizations today, we're focused on driving an AI-first employee experience by providing support to every single individual in a personalized and confidential way. But also by creating space for human judgment, for human creativity and value for the HR teams we work with.
That's awesome. Now, you've sort of answered a little bit of my second question, or at least I think you have anyway. So I think you launched in about 2022.
Yes.
And you had some choices to make. You had platform decisions to make. You mentioned, you know, there's even more AI models and hyperscaler platforms out there. So tell us a little bit about your decision to choose Microsoft.
Yeah.
What led you to that decision, and how much of that former Microsoft experience living in our Azure engineering organization helped you on that journey?
Yeah. The years I spent at Microsoft were foundational for me as an engineer, and seeing the impact that you can have in a company like Microsoft operating at hyperscale. I joined the company in 2016 as a young graduate. I was a software engineer in Azure Compute, reporting to Marcus Fontura and Girish Bablani back then. And I saw that it takes a lot of work to bring AI models from frontier labs and into actual production workflows where you're ultimately responsible for the outcome. And so those years that I spent at Microsoft, seeing the impact that you can have at hyperscale, you know, in the early years of my career, it was so exciting as a young grad to write code that gets deployed on a weekly basis to all Azure regions around the world. Seeing that deployment train and knowing that the code I'm writing impacts millions of lives around the world, I wanted to continue to do that now as a founder and in the CEO seat as well. And so I knew that the partnership with Microsoft is going to be critical for us, since many of the customers we work with, working with larger organizations, are also Microsoft customers themselves. The build principles we had in mind when we chose Azure as a cloud provider were really around the technology foundation in order to provide software for our customers that an individual organization we work with may have employees in 90 plus countries of operations and provide HR services to tens of thousands of employees. And so we needed to do the work that brings AI beyond a proof of concept model and into enterprise grade SLA and guarantees for the organizations we work with. So we invested in the technology foundation using Azure OpenAI, the latest GPT models through Azure OpenAI, using Kubernetes for our compute stack, using Azure for observability, using Key Vault for secret store. So all these components were essential for us to scale with the performance guarantees that our customers expect to have an exceptional employee experience. And then we focused on the specific use cases in which we excel right now in HR and IT. We built with the domain knowledge, with the right integrations, with the right UI UX to drive user adoption, and specific to the high-risk environments in which we deploy AI agents, with the right governance framework. So the technology foundation was there. The enterprise deployments, we built with that in mind from day one. And then the marketplace team has been essential for partnerships, as we're now in a growth and scaling mode. And then it's been phenomenal to partner with teams like the Incubate and Launch Experiences team, the Digital Natives team with Elena Kennedy, with Karen Cox from the Health and Life Sciences groups, which enabled us to grow faster, to help our customers leverage their pre-committed spend agreements, and to simplify procurement for large organizations so that they can innovate faster and bring this technology in a safe way to their employees.
That's so cool. And what I heard you say was like the technical backgrounding that you had in engineering was one aspect of it, but then you went on to talk about the teams you engage with in the field, the industry advisors, the healthcare and life sciences. That was all super, super important. Now, you deliver solutions into, like you said, really important parts of the business, into people's lives.
Yes.
Right? And they're going through some tough challenges, life decisions and things like that. So how do you make sure that the information that you serve up through your agentic models is grounded in trust? And how do you convince both customers, your customers as the company and your customers as the employees, that you are serving up trusted information in that regard?
This is a super important point as we're deploying AI in HR, and for us, trust cannot be an afterthought. We designed with trust, with data privacy, with data security in mind from day one. And we're hearing that even from the technology companies we work with. When I'm looking at our customers and our book of business across even the tech companies that could be building this solution themselves, they're saying they choose to partner with a specialized purpose-built solution because they wouldn't want, given the nature of the data that we're handling, again, pregnancy, sensitive healthcare information, retirement, employee relations issues, all of those subjects, they need to protect the confidentiality of their employees. And so they need the trust of employees that their names won't be revealed back to the company, given the types of inquiries that we're providing support for. And so building on Azure and building with a marketplace gave us the trust foundation with the organizations we work with. We've also been intentional about our partnerships from day one, and we have other partnerships with consulting organizations, with private equity companies who bring us to their portfolios in order to drive transformation and to help them drive efficiency while also improving the employee experience. But on the employee experience side, when we see that people come to Cascade to navigate a pregnancy scenario before they feel ready to share the news at work, or to say they don't like their manager, the manager is micromanaging and they're looking to move teams, but they want to do that in a way in which their identity is not revealed immediately. Those are moments in which we provide support to the individual, while in an aggregate seeing all these trends and sharing them back with the company, so that the company can be more agile and pivot faster during times of change, which is just critical and essential now with AI.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. You touched on a little bit about how you find your customers through not just the partnership with Microsoft, but other partnerships as well. And I know that we're going to talk a little bit about Marketplace, but tell me a little bit about customer acquisition, those other partners that you mentioned, and then what role does the Marketplace play in all of your customer acquisition?
Yeah, many of our customers are Microsoft customers themselves. They use Teams, they use SharePoint for storing their internal documentations, they use Azure Active Directory for their single sign-on. at Cascade, there are 3 different types of systems that we integrate with as we deploy AI as a new operating layer that sits on top of the HR ecosystem. So we integrate with various customers' data sources, with their underlying ERPs and HRS systems to know whether an individual is an executive in Seattle, a new hire in London, a part-time employee in Singapore, in order to deliver that hyper-personalized experience to every single employee. And then we integrate also with the customer's ticketing systems. We've built all of these connections, and especially for the private equity partnerships we work with, as companies go through M&A, they might some of the organizations we work with, they might acquire 20, 30 different companies per month. In such a scenario, you need to integrate with a lot of different SharePoint sites and a lot of different data repositories. On the other end of the spectrum, working with very large Fortune 100 organizations, their data has a lot of complexity. I remember a conversation with an executive in the early days of Cascade in which they told us, AI sounds great, and we definitely have this use case, but we are a 100-year-old company, and our data is like spaghetti right now. So we are not ready for AI. So that was a forcing function for us and for my product team to think of how can we use AI that audits a customer's documentation and that helps provide suggestions for how to clean up and how to improve their knowledge base over time, to identify gaps, to identify compliance policies that may be out of date. And so this is where AI agents fit in, not just as a new fabric that helps bring a connected enterprise, but rather as the flywheel set of agents that monitors and QAs your knowledge base over time.
So you've really built a solution that helps clean up that spaghetti, for want of a better phrase, as well as it's the interface for those really important employee moments, if you like, that you described before. And it sounds like Microsoft delivers at a core level a lot of the trust, a lot of the security, and a lot of the other solutions that you need in order to make your job, if you like, to deliver that business outcome that much easier.
They are both essential. Cascade is a two-sided platform. We provide employee-facing AI agents in which every employee receives a personalized, confidential, always-on agent. And then as employees interact with Cascade, we make sure that HR teams have access to data in real time, to seeing what's top of mind for employees, so they can prepare their organizations during times of change. In order to be successful with these implementations, for large companies and mid-market companies alike, the technology choice matters, but also the culture that you're fostering inside an organization. Because ultimately the adoption you're going to see from these systems and how people are leaning into using AI at work will be impacted by your culture. And what we're seeing, especially since we're launching these agents in HR, is that employees don't necessarily want more AI, they just want less friction. And so it's important to be intentional about the power of the technology, and that's where my background as an engineer and my co-founder's background, we were actually both at Microsoft, is foundational into making sure we're bringing this technology safely. But then it's all about the specific use case that you're solving and making sure you're deploying agents with really high accuracy for those use cases.
Anna, tell us a little bit about how you made your solution easy to buy and easy to deploy for your customers.
Yes, on the easy to buy side, for us it wasn't even a choice because we started in HR. That's where our flagship set of use cases first got started. And so HR is a cost center for organizations. And because it's a cost center, they're under massive pressure from their boards and CFOs to reduce costs. So we're helping HR teams drive operational efficiency with AI, but because we're also building a purpose-built solution and we deploy AI in a way that doesn't just automate manual inquiries and employee tier 1, tier 2 tickets, but also helps drive redesign business processes with AI, we deployed agents that are highly specialized. One of the workflows that has a really high impact in HR is open enrollment, in which employees are choosing their health insurance plan. In HR, we're looking at some of the most consequential workflows on the US economy through this health insurance spend. Healthcare costs have grown at a pace that CFOs would not be comfortable with across most lines of the business. And a recent paper I was reading from the Federal Bank of New York was showing that health insurance costs are growing so high that it's actually impacting wage growth. So we're deploying AI that doesn't just drive efficiency for the HR departments, but helps individual employees optimize their healthcare choices and organizations optimize overall healthcare spend. And then the partnership with Microsoft comes in actually in tying and packaging it all together, because we're helping customers drive ROI through productivity savings, through optimization of healthcare spend, and then leverage their pre-committed spend agreements to drive all of this transformation. So we've really been thoughtful about making sure this is a win-win-win scenario for the employees, for the employers we work with, and then through the partnership motion. On making it easy to deploy, while today it's easier to build than ever, system design and being intentional with how you're scaling systems across large organizations is also a skill that's more important than ever. And so we've packaged Cascade in a way that's not requiring us to reinvent the wheel for every customer, but rather just connect to a customer's ecosystem and make sure that they have AI agents up and running in less than 4 weeks. That is truly transformative for the organizations we work with, because historically, enterprise implementations would take months, if not years, would potentially be hundreds of millions of dollars for large employers. And so the way AI is deployed today and kind of works like magic for both employees and organizations, it's happening at a much faster pace.
Unbelievable pace. And you're so right about those legacy HR applications, months, if not years, huge investment, and you can deploy in a matter of weeks. Yes. In a hyper-personalized way.
Yes.
That's got to be super attractive. So just tell us a little bit about 2022. You've got the solution ready, you're going out to market. Like, how did the first customer engagement and win, for want of a better phrase, come about for you guys?
Yeah. We won our first customer through partnerships, actually. We were intentional with building those from the early days, and it was a little unusual in comparison to most startup playbooks. The traditional startup playbook has been to create software that you deploy across other small, medium businesses, grow fast, prove there is a market, raise a lot, scale, dilute, so on and so forth. So having spent the first chapter of my career at Microsoft, that was, again, foundational for me in seeing the impact you can accomplish at hyperscale. So I built with the enterprise use cases in mind from day one. Enterprises have different needs. That's also where they need to drive efficiency the most, and where individual employees need the most help because they don't know where to go, especially during reorgs, restructurings, times of change. So we built partnerships with consulting organizations, with some of the large cap private equity investors that brought us to their portfolio companies. And we've been intentional with build design principles to help our partners, their clients and their customers, and ultimately the employees that are the users of Cascade software.
I love it. I love how you could be intentional in this agentic world of just sort of breaking down some of those rules, as you said, of traditional startups. The playbook has very definitely changed, and
Yes.
and you hit the ball out of the park. So, what's next? What are you going to do next?
You said it, Stephen. The playbook is changing. AI changed the playbook for startups as well. So what's next for us is we launched with a hyper-specialized solution and a set of agents purpose-built for HR teams. And we had really great results. We're seeing 285% ROI in year one of the deployments. We're live with customers in a matter of weeks, and they can see their manual tickets and manual support operations decline by north of 50% in a couple of weeks, and in some cases up to 95% reduction. That's entire teams back that you're giving back to the organizations you work with. And so a little unusual for us starting in the HR space, but because the results were so positive from the organizations we work with, they then asked us to expand into other functions. And so my vision is to continue innovating in Cascade and bringing specialized use cases across all G&A operations. IT is the next pillar in which we're expanding, building on the strong results from HR. We're having requests for using AI in procurement, in helping customers revamp their intranets and overall G&A workflows. So we're excited to bring all of this beyond just knowledge retrieval, but rather help organizations use AI in a way that monetizes the labor that existed between systems that previous generations of SaaS could not capture.
That's so cool. I've got one final question for you. If there's a new digital native startup person or organization out there that's where you were in 21, 22, what's one piece of advice that you would give that person?
Yes. I think be very focused on the business model as an AI native startup. AI startups and technology startups in general typically have strong technical founders. It's our case as well at Cascade. And so I knew in the early days that we can build for what customers were asking us to solve. It's important when you're scaling a SaaS solution to be disciplined so that you build up and scale a product that can solve all customer needs. So not to become a consulting organization necessarily for your customers. Even though in the age of AI, exceptions are the new rule, and you need to build software at the right abstraction layer that scales across organizations, but is deeply embedded in each customer's ecosystem. To be successful as an AI native startup, I think more than ever, it's important to practice critical thinking versus experience. There's been a startup playbook for a while. The advice that startup founders used to receive was hire people who excel in the 0 to 1 phase because they'll be the ones who really understand what you need at this stage of the business. I've actually seen that the people who have very narrow ideas about what those early days look like are the people who have the highest difficulty to adapt now in the age of AI. And so you need to rely on your critical thinking more than experience, more than ever. As a founder, an AI native founder, I think, and founder CEO, you'll have imposter syndrome. It's my advice is to be comfortable with it. I speak with founder CEOs of public companies who still do, and surround yourself with a team that you trust, build technology that solves the needs for your customers, and then results should follow.
Ana, the last thing I would say to you is imposter. I think like the last 4 years has been an incredible journey. You've ripped up the playbook and thrown it aside, created your own playbook, created your own success. It's been a pleasure to be with you this afternoon, and I'm super excited to see what the future brings for you. And I'm so glad that it's predominantly on the Microsoft platform because your success is going to be our success as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you for having me. Thank you.